You're not afraid of being broke. You're afraid of going back to the version of you who felt small, powerless, and unsafe. You don't grind because you love ambition. You grind because you hate vulnerability. And until you separate money from survival, no amount will ever feel like enough. Read that again. This isn't about income. It's about fear. And fear doesn't live in your bank account. It lives in your nervous system. 1. The global illusion of more. The modern world sells a clean formula: increase income, increase security, increase happiness. Logical, linear, reassuring, except it doesn't work. In high-income countries, financial anxiety remains one of the top stresses year after year. People earning well into six figures still report chronic money stress. Entrepreneurs with liquidity events still obsessively monitor markets. Professionals with stable careers still feel one downturn away from collapse. Why? Because income and safety are not the same category. Income is external. Safety is internal. Income fluctuates. Safety is a perception, and perception is neurological. 2. Scarcity is a biological state. Scarcity isn't just a negative mindset, it's a physiological condition. When the brain perceives insufficient resources, real or imagined, it activates survival circuitry, cortisol increases, amygdala activity rises, prefrontal decision-making weakens, long-term planning shrinks. In survival mode, your system prioritizes immediate protection over strategic growth. That's helpful if you're starving. It's destructive if you're investing. Here's the brutal part: you don't need actual poverty to activate scarcity. You only need remembered instability. If your childhood environment linked money to conflict, tension, shame, or unpredictability, your nervous system encoded money as threat. Years later, your income may rise. Your nervous system might not. 3. Childhood financial imprinting. Before age 12, your beliefs about money were formed through observation, not logic. You watched how adults reacted to bills, how they talked about wealthy people, how they responded to lack, how they behaved during financial stress. If money conversations meant arguments, you learned money equals tension. If success triggered envy, you learned wealth equals danger. If lack created shame, you learned poverty equals humiliation. Children don't analyze patterns. They absorb emotional energy. Those emotional associations become subconscious rules. Then you grow up, you start earning, but your operating system is still running outdated code. 4. The high earner paradox. There are individuals making $300,000 a year who feel financially insecure. There are founders who exit companies for millions and still struggle with anxiety. There are investors with diversified portfolios who check market apps every hour. Objectively stable, subjectively unstable. Why? Because wealth doesn't erase memory. If your early environment taught you that security is fragile, you will experience success as temporary. You will anticipate loss. You will brace for collapse. Not because you're irrational, but because your body learned that stability never lasts. 5. Achievement is emotional compensation. For many high performers, ambition is not about desire, it's about repair. Achievement becomes a strategy to outrun early powerlessness. If I earn enough, I'll never feel small again. If I build enough, no one can dismiss me. If I succeed enough, I'll finally matter. Money becomes symbolic armor. It protects against shame, against rejection, against invisibility, but armor creates dependency. The more your identity relies on external proof, the more terrified you become of losing it. That's not freedom, that's psychological leverage, and leverage cuts both ways. 6. The hedonic adaptation trap. You hit your first six figures. Euphoria. 6 months later, normal. You double revenue. Brief adrenaline spike. Then recalibration. This phenomenon, hedonic adaptation, ensures that emotional baselines reset after positive change. The brain normalizes improvement quickly. If your sense of safety depends on achievement, the bar must constantly move, because the feeling fades. So you raise the target, then raise it again, then again. Externally successful, internally restless. You're not chasing wealth, you're chasing relief. And relief is temporary when the root problem is unaddressed. 7. Modern comparison. Scarcity without poverty. Today, scarcity isn't about food. It's about status. Social media transformed comparison from local to global. You no longer compare yourself to your neighbor. You compare yourself to curated highlight reels from across the world. Private jets, luxury launches, Crypto gains. Retired at 28 narratives. Your rational mind knows it's selective. Your primitive brain doesn't care. From an evolutionary standpoint, status influences access to resources and social belonging. When you perceive yourself as behind, stress activates. Cortisol doesn't distinguish between tribal exile and Instagram envy, it just reacts. So even financially stable individuals feel scarce, because scarcity is now psychological, not material. 8. Money is nervous system regulation. Some people spend to regulate anxiety, some hoard to regulate anxiety, some overwork to regulate anxiety, some overinvest to regulate anxiety. Different behaviors, same mechanism. Money becomes an emotional regulator. The problem? Financial systems are volatile. Markets move, businesses fluctuate, clients leave, economies shift. If your emotional stability depends on financial certainty, volatility will destabilize you. And volatility is increasing globally, which means emotional resilience is becoming a primary economic advantage. 9. Why people self-sabotage. Wealth. Lottery winners going bankrupt isn't rare. Athletes losing fortunes isn't rare. Entrepreneurs imploding after scaling isn't rare. This isn't stupidity, it's familiarity bias. The brain prefers known states, even painful ones, over unknown stability. If chaos was normal early in life, stability can feel foreign. Foreign feels unsafe. So unconsciously, some individuals recreate volatility. Overspending, excessive risk-taking, poor boundaries, unnecessary expansion, not because they want failure, but because their system feels more at home in turbulence. Stability requires internal adjustment, and that adjustment is uncomfortable. 10. Identity attachment and fragility. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If your income disappeared tomorrow, who would you be? If your company failed, who would you be? If your investments crashed, who would you be? If the answer threatens your sense of worth, your identity is entangled with your net worth. Attachment creates fragility. The more tightly you bind self-worth to financial status, the more any fluctuation feels existential. That's why market dips feel personal. That's why missed deals feel humiliating. That's why pauses feel like failure. Because it's not about money, it's about identity survival. 11. The myth of passive income salvation. Passive income is marketed as emotional liberation. Earn while you sleep, but if your nervous system is wired for threat, you won't sleep. You'll check dashboards. You'll anticipate downturns. You'll imagine worst-case scenarios. Freedom without internal stability becomes hypervigilance with better branding. You can automate revenue. You cannot automate insecurity. 12. The future, psychological capital. Financial capital. We are entering an era of amplified volatility, disruption, geopolitical shifts, market unpredictability, industry transformation. Opportunities are expanding. So is uncertainty. Technical skill will matter. Strategic intelligence will matter. But emotional regulation will determine longevity. The calm investor outlasts the reactive trader. The grounded founder survives downturns. The regulated mind compounds better decisions. In volatile environments, nervous system stability becomes economic leverage. 13. What financial freedom actually is. Financial freedom is not the absence of work. It is the absence of fear-driven decision-making. It is the ability to take calculated risks without panic, experience loss without identity collapse, pause without shame, build without desperation. It is psychological neutrality toward money fluctuations. That neutrality creates clarity. Clarity improves decisions. Improved decisions compound. That's how wealth grows sustainably. Not through urgency, through stability. 14. Rewiring internal safety. This is not about affirmations. It's about awareness and nervous system recalibration. First, notice your triggers. Does a minor expense spike anxiety? Does comparison trigger urgency? Does income fluctuation disrupt sleep? Second, build structural buffers. Emergency funds reduce physiological stress. Automated systems reduce decision fatigue. Clear financial frameworks reduce uncertainty. Structure signals safety to the brain. Third, separate identity from income. You are not your revenue. You are not your portfolio. You are not your net worth. You are the decision maker behind them. And decision makers can rebuild. Accounts can fluctuate. 15. The final brutal question. Imagine losing everything. Not dramatically, just realistically. Would you trust yourself to rebuild? If yes, you're approaching freedom. If no, that's the work. Because true financial freedom is not about never falling. It's about knowing you can rise again. Confidence in your nervous system, confidence in your adaptability, confidence in your skill. That's freedom. Closing philosophy money amplifies. It amplifies courage, or it amplifies fear. It amplifies stability, or it amplifies insecurity. Financial freedom does not begin when your bank account reaches a number. It begins when your nervous system stops interpreting fluctuation as threat, when markets dip and you remain clear, when income drops and you remain grounded, when opportunity appears and you act from strategy, not desperation. You don't need more money first. You need internal safety. Because once fear stops driving your decisions, you think long term. You build patiently. You risk intelligently. You recover faster. And ironically, that's when wealth compounds. Not because you chased it harder, but because you stopped running from your past. Fix the wiring. The numbers follow.